Okay, today we're going to have a look at a Christian YouTube channel called 1 Minute Apologist. Now this has over 900 videos, all roughly a minute long, answering tough questions that Christians have to face. You know, things like, what do Scientologists believe? Is masturbation a sin? Stuff like that. So today we're going to have a look at why is atheism unreasonable? And they have a guest, it's apologist Frank Turek, who you may know from his debates with the likes of atheists David Silverman, Christopher Hitchens, people like that. First thing you'll notice is the way that the deck is stacked in their favor right from the get-go. Not is atheism unreasonable, but why is atheism unreasonable?
Why is atheism unreasonable?
Two reasons atheists are unreasonable. Not atheists themselves as people, but their worldview is unreasonable. Number one, they think everything's material. Everything's just molecules in motion.
Okay, so he says atheists think that everything is material. It's not that atheists are convinced that everything is material. It's just that the only thing we can be currently certain about is the material world. Supernatural means beyond the natural. And if we exist in the natural world, and the supernatural is beyond our natural world, then there is no reliable way to confidently perceive and trust in that supernatural world, even if one exists. Atheists have no belief in gods or the supernatural simply because they see no sufficient evidence for them. Any atheist worth his or her salt will retract that lack of belief in light of sufficient and ideally testable evidence. Laws, morals, logic, etc. are immaterial as concepts, but they originate in the mind, which is part of the brain, which is a collection of neurons, synapses, etc. They may seem to have no substance, but thoughts and ideas are just as much part of our physical reality as any other function of the body, by way of chemical and electrical activity that science can now measure.
Well, if we're just molecules in motion, if we're just nothing but, say, moist robots, why should we believe any thought that we have? Because every thought we have is the result of a previous natural cause over which we have no control.
Okay, we've just heard Frank Turek's first reason for why he believes that atheism is unreasonable. He said things like, why believe any thought that we have? Every thought is the result of a previous natural cause over which we have no control. Now, any previous thought, I think what he's referring to there is the subconscious. Now the subconscious, it works in the background, behind the conscious, constantly processing information from the senses, building up a library of experiences over time. It's what controls things like walking, like breathing, like riding a bicycle, those automatic things. But it's still valid. It's still you. And you still have control over it. You can control the subconscious by the power of your will. But he seems to be saying that you have to believe your conscious mind because that's coming from you. But is that always a good thing? Now, what about the cases of Andrea Yates and Deanna Laney? Now, these are both Christians. Andrea Yates was a former resident of Houston, Texas, and she confessed to drowning her 5 children in the bathtub back in 2001. And a lot of this was brought about by extreme religious beliefs. And similarly, Deanna Laney in 2004 claimed that God ordered her to bash her sons' heads in, and they were 8-year-old Joshua, 6-year-old Luke. She believed that the world was coming to an end and that God had told her to get her house in order.
So atheism itself, if it's true, materialistic atheism, there's no way to show why it's true. Because we're not really reasoning, we're just reacting. That's the first reason atheism is unreasonable.
Now, the words true and truth are words often usurped by Christians and other theists. You'll see them on websites, books, entire companies with the word true or truth right there in the title. But truth is not the same as fact. When believers use the word truth, what they really mean is belief, with generous dashes of opinion, idealism, and bias thrown in. One church's truth may not be the truth of another. It's just a set of beliefs which work for them and in many cases bolsters their prejudices.
The second reason it's unreasonable is because the very laws of logic that we're using right now and that the people out there are using to understand what we're saying are immaterial laws. They're not made of molecules. You're not going to find the law of non-contradiction in your wood shop somewhere. Oh, there it is, right?
Concepts and ideas like the law of non-contradiction seem non-material, but they're a product of a very physical brain, with neurons firing within that brain. This also goes for objective morality, a favorite subject of theists, the notion that certain moral truths, like killing is wrong, for instance, can somehow exist outside of human reality. But in my opinion, this is simply a backhanded metaphor for a god. A trick that believers like to use to get an atheist to hopefully admit that there must be a god.
It's an immaterial reality, yet atheists are saying all there are materials.
If, as I suspect, Frank relies on the Christian God for his answers, then he believes that that God is immaterial. Another way of saying immaterial is unreal. Now, theists will contradict this, but no God or work of God has ever been 100% proven. How does a person who claims to have heard the voice of God in his head know for certain that it wasn't his neurons misfiring, or that a prayer from deliverance from cancer wasn't a simple remission? There's no way to distinguish a proposed act of God from coincidence or happenstance without actually seeing that God showing up and doing something.
Well, if all there are materials, if we're again just moist robots, then there's really no way to know anything for sure. That's why I say atheism is unreasonable. It defeats itself. In fact, let me put it this way. Atheism has destroyed all tools necessary to do the job of discovering anything is true. Look, if atheism is true, there's no way to know atheism is true or anything else is true.
Atheism is not a religion, and it's not a truth claim. It's a lack of belief that God or gods exist. The burden of proof is always upon the person claiming the existence of something. Believers tell us that God is an entity that can create matter, interact with us, alter time, and who exists in heaven, apparently visible to all others who exist in that realm or who come into that realm. So what is Frank Turek really saying? Obviously, that theism, belief in gods, is reasonable. Belief is hope without evidence, which, while very comforting, is pretty unreasonable, I would say. But then again, I think that I'm just molecules in motion. Why should I believe any thought that I have?